conversation today with us, we have Mr. Krishna Saraswati. Krishna is an IIT Madras and IIM Calcutta alumni who previously worked as an investment banker for more than 8 years before founding PrivateCircle. As an investment banker, he closed several successful transactions across sectors as in education, IT, and defense. Being an investment banker, he understood how capital can make a big difference to the growth of companies. He founded PrivateCircle with the primary objective of enabling companies to find the right investors and vice versa, efficiently and with the optimum use of time. The platform enables efficiencies in finding, connecting, and engaging with potential investors, customers, and vendors by leveraging data, insightful analysis, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. We warmly welcome Mr. Krishna Saraswati to the Auxano Bytes podcast.
Thanks, Archit. Thanks for having me here.
Pleasure. Let us start the session with the first question. Financial information regarding companies listed on the public markets is well organized and easily accessible. How did this idea of structuring financial information regarding private market entities occur, given its accessibility limited to specific group of investors?
Prior to PrivateCircle, I was an investment banker, and there were largely three trends, and one of the trends is in your question itself, in terms of information being well organized and very accessible as far as listed companies are concerned. In India, there are roughly anywhere between 4,000 to 5,000 listed companies. Globally, that number is closer to about 45,000 to 50,000 companies. But if you look at the number of unlisted companies in India itself, that is close to about 1.7, 1.8 million active companies now, as compared to 4,000, listed companies, which means it's anywhere 400 to 500 times in volume, and you have similar numbers even globally, where you have 50,000 companies and probably about 200 million unlisted companies. So clearly we had a case where for a fraction of the companies, information is well organized and accessible, but for pretty much 99% of the market, you don't have information, or it is opaque. Having said that, I was an investment banker pretty much looking at the unlisted space, right? And as far as the unlisted space was concerned, there were not just the fact that the information was not readily available. I remember my ex-bosses telling me that they had to go physically to access the physical annual reports of unlisted companies to be more intelligent about how they can create business or mandates for themselves. Clearly, for a long period of time, this information was not available to the general public. But around 2007, when the Ministry of Corporate Affairs enabled you to access the filings of unlisted companies, this information became accessible, though it had its, this trend just started. At least the fact is it was accessible, right? So during my banking career, and in fact even today, from then till now, the number of companies, just to give you a time frame, I graduated IIM Calcutta in 2007. In 2007, there were roughly about 5,000 companies being incorporated on a monthly basis in India. That number is a little more than 20,000 now. So a lot more companies are getting incorporated, and almost every business seeks capital and customers. Me coming from a banking background, the idea was to figure out which are the right companies that I should actually be engaging with or doing business with at the end of the day. And parallelly, there was a very strong interest in India. Again, 2005, 2006, I think the entire PE investments in India would be about a couple of $1 billion at max. There were hardly any exits because most of them were investments at that time. As of last year, I think that number is about $120 billion. So you have like 60 times capital coming in, and many capital seekers and capital providers being interested in the Indian game. As an investment banker, these are very powerful trends to be a part of, and fortunately for me, at least since 2007, I've been able to see the growth of this entire industry. In all of this, whether it is private equity funds, venture capital funds on the equity side, banks, NBFCs, digital lending, as we call it these days, to corporates and SMEs, or whether it is one company seeking another company because they could be a customer or a vendor or an acquisition target, or the need for private market intelligence is only growing because there are many more people in this industry now who want to find out the best opportunities among a very fast growing list of counterparties. So it became very important that this ecosystem has very cutting edge private market intelligence, which not only enables them to quickly decide who they should be doing business with, but also help in the process of these transactions. So these were the trends that I saw during the time where everybody needs private market intelligence, which was now a foregone conclusion. But how well can this private market intelligence can be delivered into the hands of the users was important. Another trend in the last 7-8 months was that of private capital marketplaces, which essentially started in the US, and there are various forms of it globally now, including in India, where and the reason why these private capital marketplaces started was, again, in 2005, 2007, you largely had institutional investors into transactions, into capital transactions. But in the last 5 to 10 years, private wealth, which means individuals, HNIs, and family offices, and a lot of wealth from there is being invested into what are alternative assets, which is why what was earlier the domain of investment banking, when I used to be a banker, today you have wealth management and investment banking merging. Suddenly they're all looking very similar because they are going not just to institutional capital, but also private capital to make these investments. As more and more individuals started tasting success or returns with their investments, it led to the growth of angel networks earlier, and today you have more sophisticated forms of these networks where funds are being created with just HNI capital. Which essentially also meant that these different types of investors, not just the institutional investors, will also, if not already, very soon require very high grade private market intelligence, right? So these were all the trends and that have been happening around in the past decade or so, which clearly led to the need for a very good private market intelligence tool, whether it is business intelligence, how they perform, who are the investors, and everything about the business, and intelligence about investors and intelligence about transactions. All of this becomes very important for these guys to succeed. And that's really where we are. And that's really the idea of that's really where the idea of structuring all of this information, not just structuring, but we at PrivateCircle, we don't just structure the information and present it in a manner, but we have all sorts of very deep analytics that make sure that our users don't need to do those. It's all trusted, validated, deeply analyzed insights which enable you to go to market real fast. So I hope that gives a sense of why how this idea came about and why this idea was a much needed thing in the industry today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing of getting physical copies of financial markets, right, in the early 2000s, and then MCA allowing to get those information to the trend that you foresee in the private market or the institutional investors wanting to allocate their capital. I think all these three factors led to that need and that you foresee, and this is what PrivateCircle wants to, cater to.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And truth be told, it was not just from identifying new investments or new customers or new vendors. A lot of once the transaction is done, there is a very important, very deep need for private market intelligence to monitor these transactions, these investments, or for a banker to figure out whether the company will need more capital or whether a bank should give more loan to a company, right? So the need for private market intelligence is not just at the transaction creation stage, but it is also in across the life cycle of a company or a life cycle of a transaction or a life cycle of an investment. There is a need for private market intelligence. For example, even if the deal is done, especially during the deal process, it could be relevant for finding who we should talk to during the due diligence phase, after the transactions, to figure out whether everything is going in the manner that people were expecting. So there was the need is essentially across all times of a company's or an investment's life cycle. So clearly, I mean, combine that with the fact that you're looking at a volume which is 400, 500 times more than the listed universe. I believe the time has come where we are able to cover all that on one single platform, and that's really what our objective is. Second is not just from this point of view, but the need of the private market is not just research; it's also ability to sit across the table with these people and do deals, right? Whether it is with a customer or a vendor or an acquisition target or an investment or an investor. The actual need of the users goes beyond just very deep, comprehensive analysis to even, enabling them to sit at the table across each other. So yeah, I think the opportunity is huge, and we've just taken our baby steps towards it, I guess, till now.
Absolutely. So we talked about, in early 2000s, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they allowed this information to these users. So when PrivateCircle also started, there were already other platforms who were not offering full stack solutions, but still gave enough financial information for the investors to make investment decisions. So how is PrivateCircle's offering different from the other platforms?
I was a user, right? Prior to PrivateCircle, I was a very heavy user of some of these products. In fact, we at my previous organization, we also built internal systems, etc., which enables this intelligence to be delivered faster. But having said that, if you look at the platforms that existed and continue to exist today, I think due credit to them, they've solved they solved the problem of discoverability. Because before these, there was none. There were none. There was nobody who was able to, prior to maybe about 2005, 2006, the only sources of Private market intelligence was perhaps the newspapers or products that you see in the market, or your own network where people will talk to you about some company that is doing well, and there are some investors that are doing well. It was all very it was the intelligence was collected primarily via people, via your network, and the media. Uh, and after MCA allowed these filings, and this trend is going on globally now, where people are able to get some sense of the numbers around the company, because ultimately in all of these transactions, numbers do matter, right? And mm, suddenly you had databases which listed companies out to you, you could find out. But having said that, even as of I think while the opportunity was huge, not enough investments have gone into this space in terms of trying to make sure that the entire industry is covered. For example, if you have 1 million companies in India, right? And these solutions that I was using would cover, maybe about 20,000, 30,000 at that time, maybe about 60, 70,000 now. From a user point of view, what is needed is, a coverage that truly covers the industry. And I think that is one thing that has been a bit slow. The ability to cover all the companies so that it provides value for the users, that did not happen. My experience as a banker who was using these tools would essentially be, how do I know which company to search for? Which are the if it is limited to, let's say, 30, 40,000 out of 1 million, which is about 3% or 4%, how can is there something that gives me 50% or an 80% or preferably 100% coverage, which will make my life a lot more easier? I think that is one aspect that we set out to solve. And what we quickly realized is, unless you have a completely automated technology engine that does this, it becomes a manual effort to cover those 1 million companies, and that takes a lot of time. So really, I think one of the principal ways in which we are different from others is the fact that our team here has been able to build a solution that is truly automated, right? Which means we can cover the market much faster, and that's what we do. So that's one dimension of. So it's not just discoverability of companies, which is better, but also the fact that we go very deep the users can do a very deep dive into any company or any investor on our platform, right? So one is basically the coverage, and the other is really the depth of information that you get on each of these entities, right? The third dimension in which we are different is because we've been able to invest time into a very comprehensive product development. We meaningfully serve pretty much every customer type, whether it is equity funds, whether it is lenders, whether it is companies, whether it is wealth managers, whether it. I think one dimension that and the reason is because we took time and we spent a lot of time with our customers to understand exactly what they want, and build a solution that truly covers the use cases across customer types, right? So and two more levels of differences would essentially be, one is, again, like I said earlier, it's not just research that people want to do. Remember, you're talking about investment bankers and people who can invest hundreds and thousands of crores, right? I mean, even the associate and the analyst is finding ways to quickly not be a research, not spend much time in research, but actually sit across the table and do deals. So it was not just research, but also the go-to market. Which are the companies or which are the investors I should be talking to, and how quickly can I sit across the table with them and transact? I think this entire research plus connect uh, aspect is something that we were able to cover. And that is what helped and truly delivered value to our customers, right? I think at the end, all of this essentially meant that customers saw the hard work that our team has put in, and which has resulted in a product that meets, or in many cases, significantly exceeds what they expected. That we have a lot of customer love. I think that's the one thing that I'm truly excited about in terms of how we are different from others. I think our customers truly love us, and we have a responsibility in front of us to make sure that we keep delivering on that. But yeah, these are the 5 dimensions in which we are principally different from other products. I think all of this results from an obsession on delivering massive value to customers, and that's what drives all the dimensions of differentiability.
Absolutely, sir. So I think these 5 dimensions are more towards catering to the information asymmetry. So that brings me to the third question, that is, solving information asymmetry is one of the most common problems that the tech-enabled companies try to solve. When it comes to the financial of the companies, especially in private markets, every document matters. How is PrivateCircle connecting the dots in getting all this information in one single place?
You're right. I mean, look, when you talk about information and asymmetry, financials is a very important part, but many times it is not the only part, right? And in almost every time it is not the only part. I mean, you want to know whether the financials are good, whether the operating metrics are good, because in this day and age across many tech companies, financials probably don't matter as much as other operating metrics of the company, or it could basically be non-financial aspects of the company, like legal, are there any legal cases, or are there any legal liabilities, some aspects from a legal diligence point of view. I think all of these aspects are also important, apart from just the financial data. But having said that, what you said is absolutely true, right? At the end of the day, and all this points to the fact that everything matters. It's not just every document that you find in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. It's every single news article that matters, and which talks about what the potential of the company is, or what the potential of the sector is. Or there's just so many dimensions that get analyzed. But having said that, of course, I think the weight of financial information is obviously as high as it should be, because ultimately that is the ultimate indicator of how the business does. And that's the most important truth, right? At the end of the day, you want to know everything. You want to know them really fast. And the fact of the matter is, today data is being created at a very mind-boggling pace. You also want to be updated about all of this. So I think connecting the dots between all of this information is first, how to connect the dots of the information is something that has been going on for a long time, right? I mean, even if PrivateCircle was not there, or these databases were not there, the ability to connect all of these dots into an analysis is something that has been in the domain of financial services firms. And fortunately, our founding team has a lot of experience in this to be able to build a solution around it, right? So that is one. And today, I think we have a very strong team of financial analysts, researchers, etc., who absolutely love the fact that some very high grade data and intelligence is being churned out internally that enables them to see trends and insights in the market. And remember, you can't do all of this unless you have a technology that allows you to do it automatically, because the moment any of this is manual, then connecting the dots becomes more a physical exercise than a technology driven solution. So really it's a combination of the tech, of the domain, and in all of this, increasingly what we found is our customers who uh, found that we have the ability to deliver deep insights. They often come to us, and we get to learn a lot from our customers in terms of how they are connecting the dots in real life rather than just how theory tells you, right? So with all of this, I think the ability to connect the dots becomes easier.
So I think connecting the dots and having this all information on one platform, this brings me to the next question is that given that PrivateCircle provides an end-to-end information for private markets, what are some of the market trends PrivateCircle is observing both from the company side and from the investors side?
Market trends, I mean, look, I think one trend is undeniable, right? Like I said, as long as there is more entrepreneurship happening, companies being formed, global capital coming in, domestic capital being invested, I think from a long-term point of view, as far as India is concerned, again, like I said, some of the numbers earlier, in terms of the amount of capital coming in or the number of companies being incorporated, from a long-term point of view, I think we are in good shape. We are in very good shape, right? You're going to have more ideas coming. Capital will chase growth. At the end of the day, ultimately, capital chases growth. So if there are more entrepreneurs who are, starting companies and more capital willing to fund these ideas, I think that trend is undeniably growing. So you basically have a lot of companies and investors that will continue to be formed and continue to invest, and therefore the need for either intelligence or transactions. I think that trend is very clearly only going to grow as far as the long term is concerned. Every few years and then you have cycles of valuations, right? I mean, they're depending on demand, supply, depending on various factors, the gap of valuations between a capital seeker and capital providers is like a wave, right? Sometimes it is huge, sometimes it is not there, and these cycles will continue, right, over the longer term. I think today, I mean, depending on the time frame you take, I mean, whatever funding winter or whatever trends that one reads in the media today. And I think this cycle will pass through at some level. Now, whether it is going to be 2-3 months or whether it's going to be 12-18 months is something that will be seen. But then it doesn't matter what cycle one is in, because in every cycle there is a specific type of transaction which will gather steam. In good times, you'll have investments. In bad times, people will tend to consolidate and make sure that they're surviving. You're going to find different trends depending on the gap in the valuation expectations, but primarily for investments. So, as of today, I guess we will find out whether it's a 3-4 month period before market gets back. And when I say market gets back, it only means that the gap in valuation has reduced, right? Or does it continue to stay at this level, or will it increase and then reduce? Because at some point in time, this gap is going to reduce. Now, whether it is 3-4 months from now, 12-18 months from now, we will see. But again, there you'll find pockets in which the gap is not there, and pockets in which the gap is obviously there, right? And it is precisely to for every participant to understand what his perceived value is, where private market intelligence will become that much more important, right? I mean, so again, I think as far as the trends are concerned, as of today, I think people are a bit slow. I'm pretty sure people are a bit slow because people want to see what the new normal is going to be. Every time there is a new normal, right? I mean, and that normal sets itself across cycles. But having said that, in the long term, I think we are extremely good.
All right, that's nice to hear, sir. So we talked about the information, right? We talked about how connecting dots at PrivateCircle takes place. So let us talk about one of the user, and that is the investors. So talking from the investors angle, more than social interaction, meaningful and constructive interactions which are mutually beneficial in nature is preferred. So how does PrivateCircle cater to such a nature of communication?
Oh, I mean, fact of the matter is that when in your question, when you mean an investor, right? Uh, we, Again, it's private markets are different from public markets in the sense that you're not looking. Today we have situations, but in general, private market investors are those who have the ability to sign checks of lakhs and crores. It's not just a few hundreds or a few thousands of rupees, right? And which essentially means that when investors invest these serious check sizes, it's not just important that you've done your research and your diligence, but you're going to meet multiple times, right? Who do you meet and how does that engagement takes place is also a very critical indicator of whether these deals are going to happen, right? So I think as far as communication is concerned, to just to talk about your question, I think the first aspect of communication is who to communicate with, right? And then the next aspect of communication is while you guys are meeting, are the are is the quality of the meetings really good, right? Which means, have you absorbed everything about the opportunity in as few meetings as possible, or much fewer meetings than what one needs to get to the stage to figure whether you do the deal or not. I think both of these types of communications, in terms of who to communicate with and how do you communicate, becomes very important, right? So again, like I said earlier, it's not just the research and intelligence that we provide to our customers, but also to figure out who are the right people, because often knowing the right people becomes important to be able to pitch more effectively, right? Yeah, and once you're connected with the person, do you know everything about that person, their business, which leads to very effective engagements, is very, very critical for the transaction to move forward and quickly and in a positive manner. And to that extent, I think our product and our solution helps our customers to do all of this, right? Can I know all the questions to ask, so that all my doubts are cleared to move further into more, documentation process, etc., and all of that. I think our product is well designed to take care of these, as well as to reach out to people and engage with them, right? So I think we've covered those in terms of uh, product. So today our product is a one-stop platform where you can find the right companies, find the right people, or find the right investors, or find the right people, and just get connected with them in the best manner possible. And truth be told, instead of 10 meetings to arrive at a decision, can you take 2-3 meetings to arrive at your decision, right? So I think all our entire post intelligence aspect of the product is geared towards solving these two questions.
Absolutely, sir. So PrivateCircle recently launched PrivateCircle Markets. What is the main USP?
So again, if you remember, as I was talking a bit earlier, there were just capital seekers and capital providers and investment bankers in between, right? But with the growth, what even while the need for private market intelligence or good private market intelligence or communication, as we spoke about now, is very, very important, it would be really good if all of that is taken care of and there is some logic which tells you, hey, you should be talking to these investors and because of these reasons, and you should be talking to these companies because of these reasons, right? I mean, today in fact, when we incorporated PrivateCircle, one of our earlier taglines, or during the time when we were thinking about what the tagline should be, one of the taglines was, can we increase the velocity of high quality transactions in the market, right? And I think that is and the visualization was more like, I'm a company, I want to raise this much preferred check size, and show me all the investors, right? And like I said earlier, there were private capital marketplaces. You had the angel lists and the Let's Ventures of the world, who did a fabulous job in making sure that companies who truly needed capital are able to have a pitch session, right, across to investors, or to basically find out what investors are doing, and to present good opportunities to them. From a company point of view, at the end of the day, I did not want to be limited to the number of investors on a single platform, right? Whether it is a digital platform or whether it is angel networks or so, right? I mean, earlier as a company, I would meet individual investors. Now I would be meeting several angel networks and VCs. As a company, it would be great if I was told, we know everything about you, and these are the best guys that you should be talking to, that you'll have a high probability of getting a check from, or to investors, to tell them that, we know where you've invested, we have a strong sense of what you've done, and these are the companies that you should be investing in or talking to. Now, this could be equity transactions, debt transactions, customer, or whatever, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, the best thing for anybody is, to get a list of high probability closures, and that is where we wanted to go, right? And so one way, sure, was to build a network of both capital seekers, capital providers, etc., and all of those. But we realized that and several of my friends would have been successful in raising capital, and they loved the experience as compared to what if there were no such platforms, right? I mean, but I think today, where we are with the kind of intelligence that we have, we found ourselves in a position where we don't necessarily need a company or an investor to give us the information based on which we will matchmake within the network, within the people in our network. Because of the intelligence we had, we figured that we could, and this was far more effective matchmaking for me to tell, you want an investor who's invested in your kind of space, there is an individual in Indore who could potentially be interested, because and truth be told, many of these investors are not yet on the platform, on these networks, right? Surely that's growing, and that's growing leaps and bounds, in terms of but again, in these networks, the ability to collect the data of the company, of the investors, because data keeps moving, data keeps changing. What is good today may not be good tomorrow. What is interesting today may not be interesting tomorrow. So the idea really was that you need this kind of a private market intelligence to be able to create a product or a marketplace that effectively matches both sides, right? And that really was our founding thesis, behind which we first went behind technology, or creating the intelligence. But and that's really the thesis for markets as well, right? Where we have all the intelligence to effectively enable participants to look at a list of high probable closures and focus on them. I'm sure everybody will be having their own network, and everybody will be a part of multiple networks, as they should at the end of the day. I mean, it's the founder's fiduciary responsibility to find capital, as good capital, as better capital as possible, and they are going to chase as many avenues as there could be a probability of getting capital from them, or investors. They will have as many channels to evaluate investment opportunities, right? And our thesis with markets was to be able to give them or to help them identify opportunities that is beyond just what is available on the network, right? And that's really the genesis and probably the single differentiator that PrivateCircle Markets has with respect to other marketplace models, right? And we are hoping time will show whether our thesis is right or wrong when we are able to deliver this kind of value in a marketplace model. Again, when I say marketplace model, the idea is not the idea is to help companies and investors find each other. I think that is the problem that we set out to solve. It's not about the transactions, the pricing, and all of that stuff. It's really about, are you meeting with the right people? Because it's these conversations that will, progress and move towards transactions, right? So we are very focused on conversation enabling. And as you have more high quality conversations, you're going to have high quality transactions. So those are the principles behind which we think, based on which I think we are going to be differentiated with PrivateCircle Markets.
Got it. So I think communication seemed to be the last piece of puzzle to solve. So we talked about these information analysis and communication. So given the full suite of PrivateCircle's product, is the disruption of private markets related to financial information here, or is it something even more disruptive coming up?
We've just started. Again, I think disruption in the manner, this is not an industry that gets that will get disrupted in the traditional, in the more recent sense of what the word disruption means. You cannot take an investment banker out, you cannot take a wealth manager out, you cannot take an investor out, you cannot take a company out. I think disruption is more in terms of how you're enabling them to do better transactions, how you're enabling them to do more transactions, more better transactions. I think that is where disruption is happening rather than markets themselves. There is because these transactions include a lot of aspects that are very, very subjective and cannot be permanently disrupted, if you will. I think what you can disrupt is the process by which all these things take place, because you can't have a situation in which you don't have due diligence. You can't have a situation in which you don't have documentation and negotiation of rights and all of that. Surely you can standardize them, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to have a need for them, right? So it's not like some existing processes or participants are going to disappear. I think that's a very rich thought. None of them are going to disappear. Right? Everybody has a value which they're performing over decades, and which is why these functions exist, right, at the end of the day. So so from that point of view, I think, and even from a private market financial information point of view, I think we've just about started, right? I mean, 30-35 years back, there was nothing called private market information. It's only now that in the last 10-15 years that people are finding that it exists, can be used, etc. and all that. So I think in the next 10-15 years, there's a long way to go. We probably have just barely scratched the surface in terms of what can be done with this data and the amount of value that can be unlocked with this kind of intelligence. We just barely started as compared to what could potentially happen 15-20 years down the line, right? So is something more disruptive coming up? I mean, sure, right? You do have private capital marketplace models, right, which have happened only in the last maybe 10 years, 15 years at the end of the day, not before that. And you're finding a variety of You're finding a variety of transactions coming up. You're finding a variety of participants coming up. You're finding a variety of models being experimented with. I think today people are just experimenting in terms of what can be done in a much better manner and in a more efficient manner. And I think there's still some way to go in terms of um, what all can be done. I think the space is so huge that there are, I think, innovation rather than disruption. I think we should use the word innovation. I think innovation can continue for the next 15, 20 years without battling an eyelid. You will have multiple different things, and combine that with the trends of blockchain and crypto and what have you. I mean, once these kind of technologies mature or find more stability, so that people in financial services are comfortable using them. Obviously, today also there are a lot of giant institutions who have adopted these, but still they are, I would say, at an experimental phase rather than being mainstream right now. So there are and then different types of technologies, right? And all of these are going to come together in many different combinations, and therefore you're going to find more and more innovation or disruption, however you want to call it, over the next 10-15 years, easy, as far as private markets are concerned.
Absolutely. So I think the right word is innovation in the processes, which will enable the users to even work more efficiently.
Every step, right? Whether it is intelligence process, whether it's communication process, whether it is evaluation process, whether it is actual deal creation process, or at the end it will be, I am not going to do research at all. I will not spend time doing any research, but I have this really cool app which basically tells me here is where your money has to be invested, and also gives me the certainty that these are good strategies to deploy my wealth in. Now that could be private, that could be public, that could be anything. Ultimately, all of this is geared towards making sure that efficient capital grows well, efficient investments grow well, and what kind of investment it is. Whether if you're unlisted companies, are talking about unlisted primaries, secondaries, fundraisers, debt, etc., or listed companies, it could basically be investing in public stocks, or it could be bonds, or it could be whatever, because ultimately at the end of the day it's the underlying companies that are at the root of all of these financial instruments. So again, one can go on for days talking about what all things could basically happen. Suffice to say that there are many things that I expect will happen in the next 10-15 years.
Great, sir. So this brings to the last question of the podcast. Do tell us one unfiltered piece of advice you have received in your career, which has changed your perspective or has given you direction which you never thought of.
Not one. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to have worked with very experienced, not just bosses, but also customers, right? And I was very fortunate to have spent a lot of time with these people, one-on-one, close quarters, burning the midnight oil, all of that. So, but I think some of the things that helped in my perspective, as well as the direction that PrivateCircle is taking, right? I mean, it's a combination of 3 or 4 things. One is, if you know before others do and act before others can, that's a huge differentiator for success, right? Since you mentioned the word unfiltered, at the end of the day, my boss used to tell, good data and insights can make a dumb guy look really smart, right? So what the corollary to that is, what if you have good data and smart insights and efficiency with a smart guy? Because remember, in this industry, 99% of the people are really smart. They're not dumb guys, right? If you're able to put this in the hands of really smart people, then you should basically expect a lot of things to do very well, right? So that's something that one of my bosses used to tell me long time. From a process point of view, from a company point of view, um, I think there's a saying that goes like, good things takes time to build. You can't expect good things to be built in record time. Right? And not everything is a sprint. You have to know what is marathon and what is sprint and act accordingly. I think these 3-4 sayings have helped me. Some of these during the course of PrivateCircle is what I've heard, and some of these before PrivateCircle is what I've heard. But I think in general, the combination of these 4 principles have held us well until now. In terms of the advice that we got, right? So yeah, these 4. Maybe there are a few more that don't come to my mind right now, but then I think top of the mind. I've been fortunate with respect to the people. I think the more good work you do, you tend to realize that the people around you become better, and you can learn a lot from them. So hopefully that continues. It's good going now, but hopefully that continues as time goes. Let's see.
Well, great to hear, sir. This brings to end of our today's podcast. The conversation enriched us with the understanding on how the private circle is democratizing information and data regarding financials of the companies in the private markets. We thank you, Mr. Krishna Saraswati, for taking time out to share insights on what happens at the core of the tech-enabled business of private circle. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Archit. It was nice talking.
Thank you, sir.